What's up, everybody? Zach here with the Nerd Cave, and this week in gaming, Concord is dead. Ubisoft is on the edge and not of glory, and
No.
Phil Spencer is a delightful conundrum because this is the Nerd Cave News, and I am one of your hosts, Zach Dykes, joined by a warrior king that stood ready. His sword, Valscard, gleaming beneath the stormy sky. His warriors battled the twisted minions of Morgorath, the foul sorcerer who sought to plunge the kingdom into eternal night. Tharkrik's grip tightened on his sword, its blade humming with the fury of generations. As the warrior king charged into the fray, his battle cry a thunderous promise. Today, he would cut down Morgorath and see the dawn rise again over his land. His name was King Thalric Volcrum.
That is S tier exposition and an S tier name, if I ever heard one. That's very it feels like very Dragon Age inspired. I like that, your boy is very partial to like very highfalutin names and very big fantasy exposition. So the important question now is, because I gave it such high praise, where does it rank? And I'm already looking at this top 5. So we've got Marconius Dracon, the Great Wizard, High Goblin King Gilgamesh, Maxwell Mindreach Stone, Nightshade, and Aurelius Thorn. Already off rip, it's already in the top 3. Reading off those names again. Actually, let's see. We got Is it better than Marconius or High Goblin King? It's a tough one because there's just King and then there's High Goblin King.
Yeah.
And it's the Great Wizard. I've got, part of me is like, do I keep the hierarchy the way it is? Because, it doesn't make sense to put a king over a high king. And I
don't know, Derek. Where do you put it?
I think I'm going to keep the hierarchy the way it is, but keep it at the number 3 slot.
Whoa, a new number 3. Let's go. Let's go, Derek. That is exciting.
Amy outdid herself this week.
She did. She did a great job this week. Guys, gals, this episode is brought to you by the Epic Games Store, where you can support us by using creator code NerdCave at checkout, and our wonderful patrons. But more about that later, because we're getting into what you've been playing.
So I have been playing much because, your boy worked 40 hours straight from Saturday through Tuesday night in the overnight. So I used most of yesterday to rest and catch up or rewatch Demon Slayer season 3 and I'm going to watch the new season starting tomorrow, finally. But I did squeeze in some time today to play a little bit more of Star Wars Outlaws. And, last week, what we talked about didn't really leave the best taste in my mouth. It had its high points, but a lot of it was just mundane minutia, and a lot of it felt like just uninspired.
Yeah.
But playing a little bit, I played about roughly 90 minutes today. Played a couple of quick missions that I knew I could get out the way. And the mission I recently played, it was like a quest to go find a person that turned into an actual story mission. To go find like this piece for the speeder. And that was actually intriguing because you go through this old Imperial looks like starship or base, and the way it's not like a platformer, but the way you have to maneuver around it and avoid obstacles and wait for timing on certain things was a little bit more palatable, in my opinion. Again, it doesn't sway my viewpoint from last week, but it does seem like that if more of that kind of stuff and the gameplay mechanics finally sunk in for me, being able to use Nyx more to distract enemies, getting more settled in, as some might say, is making it more tolerable. So I still don't think now. Again, if I know a little game called Astrobot for me is coming out tonight at 11 o'clock. So I'm probably going to be deep into that tonight. but I'm gonna still give it. I'm still gonna try and give Outlaws a fair shake. Um, Maybe once I get off world and go to the next planet, maybe it'll change up a little bit. But I don't
Mhm.
know. I'm kind of agreeing with the ranking that IGN gave it. It's a 7. It's a good game, but not what Ubisoft and Massive like is was hoping for. And we have a story that'll get into it a little later. But Zach, I know you played several hours on Tuesday of Outlaws. What
Yep.
I'm curious to hear your reactions and like your thoughts on it.
So I played about an hour and a half or so of the game, got off the first world. The tutorial is way too long.
For sure. I
The
agree.
is way too long, and I felt like some of it could have been cut in half easily.
Right.
And the the Rebel Alliance just like, we're gone. We're not, like, I'm
Right.
just like, is this
Da, da,
Saw
da, da, da.
Gerrera's people? Or,
Right.
like,
It
it
probably is.
felt way more like that than, like the Princess Leia kind of sect
Right.
of them. But I I think the trait based or the challenge based leveling up is interesting,
Yeah.
where it's like you have to do X amount of things and then you are able to level up certain attributes. I think that's pretty cool. I could see that becoming more difficult as the game goes on.
True.
Um, but it kind of just feels a little basic. Like,
Right.
looking at it now, and if anyone is trying to, decide should you buy Outlaws, I would say wait until it goes on sale.
Yeah.
It is not super impressive. The speeder bike feels like a drunk horse from Red Dead Redemption. It is
Oh,
it
especially on the turning and handling too, man. Like
yeah.
there are sometimes like I see like a structure coming up, and I feel like I turn far enough, but not, like I turn in just enough time, but I don't, and I still like crash and fall off. Like, and I know what's coming because it's another typical Ubisoft fashion. It's like, oh, there's going to be mission trees that you can upgrade your speeder and get better handling. That's not the point. Like,
Yeah.
it shouldn't take 8 years to turn to avoid an obstacle that you see coming 8-10 miles down the road, and don't
Yeah.
and still hit it. Like there's just like you said, basic things that should just make sense that don't.
Yeah, and it's like your vehicle, your main mode of transportation to get around the maps should feel good.
Right.
That's, looking at Red Dead, because a lot of people are like, oh, it's Red Dead, but it's Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
No, it is not. It is far from it. Riding the horse in Red Dead, either one of them, the first one or the second one,
Mm-hmm.
always felt great. Like, it felt good to ride. And the speeder bike doesn't really feel that way.
No.
It kind of feels like they could have spent a few more months and really got that into an amazing place, but they didn't.
Right.
So, we're kind of at we're at where we're at. So I do like Nyx. I think Nyx is an interesting gameplay mechanic, but I feel
Mhm.
like Nyx is going to be the crutch that this game is built on.
That a lot, like in order to avoid a lot of things or get through some things, like you have to use Nyx all the time, is what you're getting at.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Because it is one of those things where, oh, well, I have to use Nyx to do this. And like I was doing a little bit of skullduggery, some thievery.
Mhm.
I was literally stealing grenades from stormtroopers
Yeah.
and nothing to it. And then I got some random person I was able to steal from, and then that's when my wanted level went up, and the
Oh boy.
stormtroopers like came right after me.
Bro.
Um,
And again, again, in typical Ubisoft fashion, because you are right, I can see where down the road it's going to be a crux. It's like you're going to have to use Nyx all the time to get through and like give it like 8 different commands just to get through one part of the level. At the same time, like again, I get that because they want you to utilize Nyx and make it an asset. At the same time, like that's fine for a linear game. like for an open world game is there that they've done. Don't limit me to one option. Now, what I do like, they do give options like say you like on the first planet, right? Like you come to this base and you're just finding this information or this key card that you have to do. There's multiple points of entry. Like you don't have to always going through the front door. If you want to be stealthy, there's like side entrances you can go through and pick your way through. Um, but you give me options in that, but not options on how to solve puzzles. Like it always has to rely on Nix. That you didn't include options with that. Like, and that's what I think more and more games need to do is give you options. Like, and it doesn't have to be like an accessibility thing, but it almost feels like it should be like a kind of accessibility thing, like just in general game development, where it's like, hey, an open world game, we're going to give you like in Ghost of Tsushima does it well, right? Like to go back to that old horse, like they give you options. Like when you go to a base, you can go in there guns blazing, or go in there like a ninja, just pick off and sneak off into the night without ever being seen. Like, give me those options. Like, don't just hamper me by one mechanic.
Yeah, it definitely feels like the first, the tutorial level, essentially, where you break into this big compound, like, had to go loud. Did not stay alive long enough because it was like the first fight or whatever, but it was like, okay, I guess I have to use Nix to get past this.
Right.
It feels like we could have gotten a really good game if it would have been allowed to bake a little bit longer. It kind of feels like the middle's not done.
Like most Ubisoft games and just like their presentations.
Yeah, like it's crazy because I saw someone comparing Assassin's Creed Brotherhood with this game, and they were like jumping in the water and swimming. It was like this game was 10 years ago, and then you show Kay trying to jump in the water and she automatically dies. It's like,
wow.
It's like, does the girl not know how to swim? And if she doesn't, explain that. Like, do something story-wise to explain that.
Right.
And then, that'll make more sense. But, yeah.
I don't know. And, again, like I said last week, I can't wait for Massive to go to the Division 3. And that was a partial shot at Outlaws because, like you said, some of the mechanics, like some of those choices, like the swim, like the ability not to swim, it makes sense. At the same time, it's just like go back to what you do well, which you did the Division. Like I know people can argue that 2 wasn't as great as 1, but I enjoyed 2 much better than 1 and had a lot better quality of life improvements gameplay wise than the first one. So, but I'm interested to see what they can going back to their roots and going back to the Division and making that a great game. Because and credit to them, they tried different things. They tried Avatar, they tried Star Wars Outlaws. I think they were over bogged down. Like I know Ubisoft studios are massive, and they have all 80 of their studios working on the same game at once. It feels like,
Yeah.
And so I know a lot of stress is taking off the main studio. However, and they wanted to try their hands at some open world, like non-online centric games, and I applaud them for trying. But now that but unfortunately, with licensed titles and trying to exceed expectations by doing things different, you fall short.
Yep.
So and now I'm just let them go back to the roots and be who they're meant to be, an online looter shooter that's very like technical heavy and got a lot of flashy abilities. So, and again, the further we get into Outlaws, depending on how we feel, and because depending on how far we're allowed to get before the next big game we're anticipating comes out, we might find some redeemable qualities. But that brings me to my next question: is there anything that you did enjoy with your time in Outlaws? I know you said Nick's was intriguing, but it also could be a hamper later down the road. But was there any redeeming qualities from what you played of Outlaws?
For me, I think the world at times looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Like they've got some interesting Star Wars parts of it. I am looking forward to playing Sabak. I haven't got to do that yet. I think Nyx is the best part. Like Kay feels kind of one note. Like there's not a lot to her. I do like Trey was on the stream, like he was watching, and he brought up a good point, and I 100% agree with this. There's good diversity in the game, and what I mean by that is there's tons of different species within like the Star Wars universe shown. It's not just humans or a few Twi'leks. Like there's a good mix across the board, which I really like. I think that's
because it's such a massive universe. It does a disservice if you only put a few races in there.
Yeah. So, you know, as we go on, I'm sure we'll see some different, you know, maybe we'll get an Thorian, maybe we'll get some Durians. Like, I just want to, you know, maybe we'll get a Bith band or whatever at a, you know, like, I like that part of it. I think that really brings in the universe part of it.
Yeah.
But at the moment, it just kind of feels one note. And we'll see where it goes from there.
Couple more questions. One, what do you think about the main villain? Like, I know we haven't gotten too much into him, but like we did get a nice little introductory with him at the beginning, and how he's pretty much like trying to take over the criminal underworld, or like be the head honcho of it. What is the villain? Does the villain strike any? Because, you know, Mr. Darth Vader over here. Does the villain strike any notes with you, or is like at least it's like, huh, that could make for a redeeming character, or like not a redeeming character, but an intriguing character later on in the story, or is it also like, hey, just one note?
At the moment, all I've seen was the very first cinematic, and then at the end of essentially the first mission, or the tutorial and everything. I feel like they're trying to make him this big scary bad or whatever, but I don't necessarily feel it, because it felt kind of forced, and it was just like, all right, you know, I'm trying to take over or whatever, and it's like, let it cook a little bit, you know, let that devious nature be there. And it's like some of the dialogue like was trying to say that it's like, yeah, my brother, you remind me of my brother, you know, my late brother, and all of this. And I don't know, like I need to see more of him, but because right now it just feels like villain of the week.
Yeah, fair.
You know, and I want something more, but I'm expecting, you know, like Tarkin or Vader, you know, somebody on there, even like Jabba the Hutt, or Prince Zizor from the books. Like he was like over a crime syndicate and everything, or the dude that was over, like he was like in the Solo movie, not Maul, not, you know, but he was Paul Bettany's character. Like he was like, he wasn't on screen a whole lot, but he had gravitas. And this feels like, oh, he's a bad dude. Like, you know, he's going to walk in with a black cowboy hat here in a little bit, just like, he's bad. He's the bad guy. Wink, wink.
So in other words, it's machismo.
Yeah. It's not hitting the right notes for me.
Yeah. Last question I have is, like, again, alluding to, we know we're getting Jabba the Hutt, and we know we're getting Lando Calrissian as cameo characters in this game. You know, Star Wars, like the extended universe, prides itself on intertwining the universe into each other and getting. I'm not expecting Jedi or Sith in this game. I'm just going to throw this out here, because I think they want this to keep, with a name like Outlaws, I think they want to keep it to just like the nerf herders and like the bounty hunters and all that. Do you think, like, how many other cameos do you think, like, do we get a Han Solo? Do we get like a Boba Fett? Do we get like any of those kind of cameos, or do you think it's just pretty much going to stick to very limited, like Jabba and Lando?
I hope that they don't lean too heavily on like the bigger characters. Like, yes, we are getting Jabba and Lando. I don't want to see Han Solo, because everybody is going to continue to compare Kay against Han, and that she is like the lackluster version of Han. I would love to see, you know, some bounty hunters that don't get a lot of love and show. Dengar, Bosk, IG-88, Zuxus, Loom. Those would be cool to see. Also, maybe getting some of the Kessel, like I don't know if Kessel's in the game,
Mhm.
but like getting like this Kessel spice trading and all of that. There's
Ooh,
so many cool things within the underbelly of Star Wars that can be done if they are willing to go into that route. Um, Again, Prince Izor, which is a huge crime lord, which in this he's that the organization is not canon at the moment, but he
mhm.
would be super cool to bring in. And then like the Empire has always had some sort of dealings with the crime bosses.
Yeah.
So like seeing some more of that. So for me, I don't want them to lean super heavy on established characters, because then it's like goes to Battlefront 2 where they
Mm,
relied super heavy on Luke Skywalker and a few
mhm.
others to push the story forward. And it could have been done so much better. And that game was a waste. The story mode was a waste for sure.
Fair.
So,
So, well, I'm
yeah.
glad you finally got a chance to play it and get your own thoughts, because I know you were kind of worried that you would agree too much with Greg Miller on his reviews, but it's a good thing that you got to play it and have your own opinions on it, and I'm kind of glad we agree. We pretty much agree on it, on a lot of it to an extent. Um, I don't want to say it's a flop, but it definitely is underwhelming game so far of the to enter
Yeah.
into the fall season.
Yeah. It kind of just came out with a whimper
Yeah.
more than a bang. Before we go into the first one, just want to welcome everyone to the stream. Hope you're doing well. Nate says, Bro, Brotherhood was good. I agree.
It
Brotherhood,
was.
Revelations, Bloodlines, like those three that like dealt with Ezio.
Mm-hmm.
Back when Ubisoft used to make great games.
I know.
Welcome.
Hopefully, Shadows will be good, but I'm not holding my breath.
I don't know, dude. I'm not holding my breath. I don't want to die. Lord Polly, welcome to the stream. Hope you're doing well. Mikey, I hope you're doing well.
What up?
So, speaking of Star Wars Outlaws, our first story in the gaming discussion this week is Ubisoft share price drops to lowest in nearly 10 years following Star Wars Outlaws release.
So, according to a report on Reuters, Ubisoft has seen its share price fall to its lowest since 2015, following the release of Star Wars Outlaws, which has failed to set Tills alight uh, following its late August release. The publisher's share price hit 15 pounds and 20 quid, or however you want to say that, earlier today, which is the lowest in the past year and almost hitting the lowest it has been in nearly 10 years. Back in December 2014, the share price for Ubisoft fell to 15 before it began to climb, reaching its highest at 102.95 in July of 2018. Charles Louis Plande, an analyst with MyCap Partners, said that the drop in share price can be attributed to the sharp decline of X Defiant among players, as well as poor sales of Star Wars Outlaws. Meanwhile, JP Morgan analyst Daniel Kervin added, Outlaws has struggled to meet our sales expectations despite positive critical reviews. Outlaws has released, and according to GameIndustry.biz, Christopher Dring sold 55% fewer copies at launch than the last major entry in the franchise, which was Jedi Survivor. And I don't. So what? So my question to you would be: is this more indicative of Ubisoft with its share? Because I know they fought off of Indy. It was a major several years ago. It was a major victory in their cap. But now it feels like ever since then they've kind of just flatlined and just kind of like stagnated with their how they want to do their games and their game releases outside of Assassin's Creed. It's sort of like it's Assassin's Creed or bust, and anyone else
Mm-hmm.
wants to do other ideas, like yeah, we'll push it, we'll green light it, but we're not going to treat it as with as much love as Assassin's Creed. So is this more indicative of this is like the Star Wars, because I know we've talked about it off air before, how Star Wars like extended universe has kind of hit a sour note with you,
Mm.
and then like the games outside of the Jedi games that Respawn have done have been lackluster. So is this more indicative of Star Wars or is this more indicative of Ubisoft?
It's a combo. Like it is both of them working in tandem because people don't know what they're getting with Ubisoft these days. We've gotten mediocre game after more mediocre until where it's kind of meh.
Yeah.
And which mediocre and meh, I guess, could be the same thing. I also think people are kind of the same with Star Wars. Star Wars is not making big waves like it was at the start of the pandemic with Mandalorian. Like if they would have made a Mandalorian game, not even based off of Din Djarin, that would have been awesome as well. But based off of the culture and had gotten it out, like by this time, yeah, people will be kind of tired of Mando, especially after season 3 was kind of bleh. But people are just kind of like, yeah, Star Wars, same with Marvel. Like it is just kind of the same thing over, rinse and repeat. And, you can eat the same thing over and over again, but it loses its luster after a while. And Ubisoft is just making the same game with a different skin. And when your story is like, that's one thing with like Survivor earned its sales,
right?
Because of how good Fallen Order was.
Yes.
Like it took the Souls-like gameplay, made it accessible to a degree, and told a fantastic story with Cal. It was very emotional. It had, it's moments where you're like, oh my God, is he going to make it? Are they going to make it? Like they didn't really pull punches, and it had a great cast of characters, a lovable companion with BD1, and Survivor, because of that, sold really well. Outlaws hasn't really shown anything. It's like, oh, we've got a cute companion. It's like, that is just the base to get into the Star Wars universe. Like,
and it's lazy because like companions have become a thing in like just any medium. Like companions or like secondary characters, like in any like PlayStation's done it with a lot of their IP. Star Wars has kind of made it a mainstay with like Grogu and BD1 and all that kind of stuff. So
R2D2 back in the day, man.
Right, the OG. So it's almost becoming like a lazy insert at this point.
Yeah, so I think it's a combo, and when you look at this, I think this pulls Ubisoft in a very interesting way. You were talking about Vivendi. I think if this continues, Ubisoft is going to be in a position where Assassin's Creed, well, right now, Assassin's Creed isn't going to save them.
No.
They were really counting on Star Wars Outlaws to do big numbers, and it not even hit, like being 55% less of what people predicted is huge, because I think a lot of reviewers, it's super mixed. It is not, you've got people that are saying like 7s, and then you've got people that are saying 4s or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like people don't really know where this game fits, and a lot of people, I see a lot of comments online. It's like, yeah, this game would have been great 15 years ago.
Fair.
And I don't disagree with that, because there are a lot of things to be like, yeah, this would have been a fantastic game 15 years ago, but we're at this point where we expect more from it.
Yeah.
Even if we compared it to God of War, Ragnarok, which, that was a AA game, Derek. This is supposed to be a quadruple A game.
Yeah.
They were touting all of this. It's the saying, mess around and find out. I think Ubisoft is finding out right now. So if you were at the head of Ubisoft, Derek, with all of this going on, what would be your move to help save the company so you don't have to sell it to a Sony, a Microsoft, a Nintendo, or a Tencent?
So starting off, I would kind of do the PlayStation approach, like mixed in with Xbox, and just let devs be the devs. Like let them play to their strengths. Like again with Massive, they tried their hand at these open world license games with Avatar and Star Wars. Let them go back to what they know how to do, and that's Division, or just like something else in the Tom Clancy's universe. Bring back Splinter Cell, because I think that's a sorely missed franchise, and like they keep working on it. It's almost like Beyond Good and Evil 2 at this point. Get off the pot, like just like let it be a thing. Like we know it exists, we know that they're
Yeah.
working on concept, but like we need substance at this point. And then also get rid of these, like kind of like how PlayStation's doing. Is like, we're not going to tolerate 10-year development cycles anymore. Nix these games that I know it's a cult hit, and there are people who are clamoring for it, but I would kill Beyond Good and Evil 2, because
Oh yeah.
it's just gestating and it's doing nothing for anybody. So like, kill all these games that have been long in production, and have a lot of these studios get back to their roots. Like, let like 2 or 3 studios be the Assassin's Creed studios, because that is what's making them money, but also focus on making them better and giving them longer development cycles. And like, I know there's a break from when I know they kind of ebb and flow. Like, ever since Syndicate, they'll take a couple years off, then do another chunk of games, then take another couple years off, and then that's when what was the one last year? Origins is not the right
Mirage.
one. Mirage, thank you. Mirage, and then now of course it's followed by Shadows this year. So, and I know they're working on a bunch of other Assassin's Creed. Like, I know they've done a VR. They're doing not Unity, Infinity, I think it's what it's called, or
It's
whatever it is.
yeah, Infinity.
So what that one that is going to be an ever evolving Assassin's Creed story. Like, take away those ideas and just go back to, like, Mirage had the right idea. I feel like, again, I want to see intriguing Shadows, because everyone wanted the feudal Japan Assassin's Creed. So let's see how this comes out before I make the final say. But Mirage, I feel, was a step in the right direction for the series, because it got back to its roots. What made it Assassin's Creed, and it felt tight, like, had a vision. It wasn't this huge open world with a bunch of RPG elements mixed in. Even though I did love Odyssey, that was a one-off. You know what I mean? Like, it wore out its welcome by Valhalla, soon
Yep.
after. So I don't know. Like, I would right the ship, and again, like, let devs get creative. Like, don't worry about these licenses, and then stop doing useless games for tech. Like, we don't have to be the first on this new piece of tech. Like, we don't have to be first on VR games. We don't have to be first on Stadia and waste our resources on that. Like, yes, we might have throw around money because we're a huge company that spans multiple countries, but that doesn't mean we just write blank checks and just do tax write-offs essentially after they don't pan through. Do stuff that, like, see if there's a market, and then if people want to play this new tech, then put games in the ethos for them to play.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. It gets to this point where they just constantly shoot themselves in the foot.
Yeah.
You know, like your point of being first on every piece of new it's all the time. Every
Yeah.
time you turn around, it's like, oh, well, Ubisoft's putting their games on, there was one, oh God, it was like 360 area. It was like the
Ouya.
yeah, the Ouya. There we go.
Yep.
That's the one. You know what I mean? It's those kind of things, but it goes past that with just mishandling of IP.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they've got some of the strongest IP, and they've just literally strangled the life out of Tom Clancy's name. Like,
Yes.
like Ghost Recon, Future Warfare, like all of these different things that could be great, they've just literally murdered in the street. And it's like, you had it all and you've wasted it.
Correct.
And it's sad. It's absolutely sad. Michael says, from the question I asked, what would he do? He said, I would start by making the Jabba the Hutt DLC free to everyone and pull researchers to make sure that it's a 10 out of 10.
Exactly. Like, and that, like, maybe not even researchers, but definitely get more like QA testers in there, and like poke holes in your ideas and be like, don't just settle for mediocrity. And your point about doing, like, strangle Tom Clancy's names just pretty much popping out. Like, I know one of the quick hits, X Defiant, I know in the article we read talks about X Defiant being a failure, and they haven't. I don't know if they're already on season 3, but they have until the end of season 3 to get the player count up. Otherwise, that game's going to be cut next.
Yeah.
And that goes to my thing is like also like it kind of ties into PlayStation and like letting devs be creative. Bring back the UB play, like the UB art games. Like
Yeah.
Child of Light?
Yeah. Child
The
of Light, then Valiant Heart.
Hearts, yeah. Like bring back some of those games to be a fun, like, and especially now, like, is do the PlayStation strategy, like in between huge releases, have smaller games that people can enjoy with good stories. Because I felt like that was peak Ubisoft back in the day when they had those small creative ideas mixed in with their huge AAA games that were hitting. And
Mm-hmm.
like even their big franchise like Far Cry, it peaked with 3.
Oh yeah.
So like 4 was good. 5 had a good premise, but a weird structure to how it did its open world setting that I think threw a lot of people off with like how it structured its story. And then 6 like unmemorable, like, and that's the thing too, like use Ubisoft also, like in terms of like also being trying to be first on a new piece of tech or new system, they also try to get big name actors, and that is
Mm-hmm.
fine to an extent because the good what's the guy who played Cal Kestis? Blanking on his name.
LeBron James.
No. But anyway, the actor who played Cal Kestis, perfect in that role, like really great. But I feel like they just get big name actors to sell their games. Like Giancarlo Esposito in Far Cry 6 was the big villain. Great actor, but I feel like they didn't write, like from a lot of what I read, they didn't write his character well enough. They just wanted to get a big name actor attached to the
Mm-hmm.
game to sell copies, and I want that to stop too. It's like quit using actors as a marketing tool for your games, because Ghost Recon Breakpoint, to your extent, John Bernthal, the villain,
Yep.
and it was unmemorable from the little bit I played. Like he was just a by the numbers villain, military head that that went rogue. So that's another thing
Yep.
too, is like be smart with your casting choices. Don't just get it for the sake of getting it, and like also make sure if you do get a big actor, it is written well for them, so that way, yes, they're still collecting their check, and I'm sure that Ubisoft is paying them well, but don't just phone it in.
Yeah. Yeah. Cameron Monaghan.
Okay.
But to your point that you were saying, like with John Bernthal, like you literally could go kill him like pretty much once you like open up the map.
I forgot. That is right. Holy cow.
Yeah,
That's
it's like,
ridiculous.
yeah, that's so stupid. But then you look at CD Projekt Red. I know Cyberpunk had a lot of issues, but I think they handled with Idris Elba and um, Keanu Reeves really well.
Mm-hmm.
Like their
Oh
characters
yeah.
were interesting and everything. But you were talking about Far Cry because we had Primal in between 3 and 4,
Fair.
and I felt like Primal was the thing that like it hit that like point where it was like started going down. But a game that we don't talk about that came out fairly recently, Rainbow Six Extraction.
Fair point. Because that
Yeah.
game, because they were trying to write off the success of Siege
Yep.
and use a limited time game mode that they put in the game and fully flesh it out, and that was a huge flop. That was, you could argue that was the start of the huge downfall for Ubisoft. There was a slow trickle, but then Extraction made it the rolling snowball effect.
Yeah, that was January 2022 was when
Mm-hmm.
that came out, and it was like we looked at it awful. And then Skull and Bones. We can't move to the next one, guys, before we say something about Skull and Bones.
Right.
Even when Murdoch abandons Skull and
Right.
Bones for
the
another
biggest
game.
advocator in this channel for Skull and Bones, like a staunch defender, some might say, to come out on the 11th hour and say, yeah, I'm not going to play it. And then we were like shocked, both of us,
Yeah.
to all get out. And we were like, what? You've been beating this drum for years, saying how we were pretty much idiots. We did our opinions were wrong. And all of a sudden you come in and be like, yeah, maybe you were right. Like, maybe this isn't worth it. I'm like, oh, okay, bud. That
Yeah.
says volumes.
Yeah. And like it all goes back to the point where Ubisoft has been spending their money like crazy. For me, I think they double down on IP that people want. Splinter Cell,
Mm-hmm.
they put in, because Rainbow Six Siege still does great numbers. Like people are still
Right.
playing that game. Put in more on that. For Honor still has a very large player base as well. I don't know how, but it still does. Put something else out there. I'm not saying release a new game. I'm saying literally just put out some more new content with For Honor. And then you go into the back pocket. It's like, okay, how can we put out some games? I'm trying to remember good Ubisoft games at this point.
Rayman. Rayman, like, we haven't
Yeah.
seen a Rayman game since 2015, 2016 with Legends?
Yeah. It's been a very, very long time. And I know like Prince of Persia Lost Crown did really well, but that's not going to carry the franchise or carry anything.
No.
Like Rocksmith didn't do great.
No.
Watch Dogs is dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, like they have
Nothing.
they have nothing because they've literally squandered all of their stuff
Yep.
over the years. Like even like Valiant Hearts 2 is on Netflix. Like you can play the second game on Netflix. Yeah, and then you got Just Dance, which we keep getting that.
It has its fan base like that. That's fine. Whatever. Just quit leading. You did good by the last Ubisoft Connect, not leading your conference with that. So
yeah,
just let it be. Just let it do its thing. I don't care.
Yeah. Well, guys, we talked a lot about Ubisoft.
Yeah.
Let's move into Xbox. Xbox boss Phil Spencer passed on Destiny and Guitar Hero, saying, I made some of the worst game choice decisions.
So Phil Spencer has admitted he's perhaps not the best judge of what games will be successful, saying he passed on over the chance to publish both Destiny and Guitar Hero in the past. Quote, I have to be honest, when Destiny 1 came out and I might have played some of the preview builds that we were doing on Xbox, it didn't really click with me. I'm not a big PvP player. You can see my player history. It's not a lot of what I do. And I was a little worried I was going to get thrown into a PvP world, and it turns out that's not what it was at all. The thing about Destiny that I start with is just my history with Bungie and their evolution of working on games. I do love that it's a local team. I have a lot of friends over there and yes, they're owned by the other guy now, but it's a game that I'll always love and a team that I'll always have a ton of affinity for. When asked if it wasn't at all frustrating that he passed on Bungie, Spencer said it wasn't even the only time something of this scale had happened. I've got so many of those. I've made some of the worst game choice decisions. An interesting one when his team came down to Redmond, which was former Harmonix CEO Alex Rigopoulos, who's great. Love Alex, and he pitches a game where they're actually going to make plastic guitars and they're going to plug into consoles and that they're going to sell tracks. Explaining how, and Spencer said on how he passed on Guitar Hero, quote, I'm like, really? Do we really think that's going to work? A few people played Guitar Hero. I hear that turned into a pretty good game. I'm not a regrets type person. Maybe that's a fault of mine, but I passed on so many games that I could look back. And he shook his fist. But no, I try to look forward and be positive about the things that we are doing. And so with Destiny, I just like to celebrate what the team has done. Hold on, excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. So my first thoughts are, and who knows, maybe under a different publisher, something could have changed. But looking at the landscape, and maybe he isn't the best judge of examples is more adept. Like, we don't know what other games he had the chance to publish, but I don't like looking at it now, like in hindsight, at peak Destiny, maybe that was a squander. But looking at it now and the way they've handled things and now how the CEO is and like all the internal debacles, maybe it was a good thing that he didn't publish Destiny. And like Guitar Hero hasn't been a relevant thing. Now that's more again Activision, which they own that studio now, and like maybe because the last Guitar Hero was 2015, but they only did that to keep the license around for the game and just keep it hostage essentially. Um, maybe, and that's out like peripheral games. I don't think like outside of VR, like VR has is kind of a mainstay outside of PSVR. But like peripherals like Guitar Hero, Rock Band, I think have gone by the wayside. So
Yep.
again, maybe if Spencer did get to publish these games, maybe it'd be different. Maybe they would still be around. Maybe they would be better. Maybe they'd be more mainstays and not have all the issues that they've had. Hindsight is 2020. At the same time, I also think I look at it as more like those were bullets dodged because who would have said that Destiny wouldn't have faltered off like the way it is now, or who would have said that Guitar Hero was costing them more money than it was making them, and they said, "All right, we can't do these peripheral games anymore, so we got to nix that." So again, it's speculation. Is all fun and games, and it's just what it is. But I get what he's saying. Like maybe there were some ideas that he should have taken the plunge on. At the same time, I think these two examples, I think in all intents and purposes, he dodged bullets.
Yeah, like looking at the state of it now, definitely. You know, even with Activision, yes, they had like harmonics and they also had Skylanders. Like that
Mm-hmm.
whole like peripheral, like added things gone. Like it was a
Yeah.
big market for a few years and then it limped on for a very, very long time.
Right.
Destiny, I think, yes, there was a lot of money to be made there. And under maybe better leadership, it could have done even better and not be in the position that it is right now. Because think about it, Destiny 1, Bungie is with Activision.
Mm-hmm.
Then they leave Activision and then go on their own, then get bought by PlayStation. It's like, who says that that wouldn't have happened with Xbox, or
Right.
they would have had to literally take over the team like PlayStation is having to do right now and get people in there to fix the issues that are going on. Like it is a
Right.
PR nightmare at the moment with some of the things going on there. And then you have Marathon on top of that. So it's like, okay, yes, like in the moment, that would have made a lot of money. But I feel like they've struggled after Destiny 1 to really stay relevant. All the people, David is about the only one, David and Tyler are about the only ones that I know that are like still hardcore on Destiny.
Oh
But
yeah.
the majority of people are moved on. They're on a different game. They're playing something else and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the same thing with Guitar Hero. I don't remember the last time it's like, oh yeah, Guitar Hero was fun back in the day.
Yeah.
But hey, they own Activision now, so we might see Guitar Hero come back in some shape, form, or fashion. But you're also dealing with the rights to the songs, which makes it way
Correct.
harder to, and those are always time limited. So it's a much, much more difficult thing to do. So I agree. I think in the long run, he's dodged a bullet. In the short term, it would have been like, dang,
Yeah. If
it's like,
only. And again, and to the other side of the coin, Phil Spencer has had his missteps since acquiring Bethesda and Activision. With how he's handled the games, like the licensing and all that kind of stuff. But peak Phil Spencer back around 2014, 2015, when the Xbox One was really trying to, like when he took over and tried to recoup like pretty much polish off the dirt of Xbox's name from how Don Matrick handled it going into the Xbox One era, was great. Like for all intents and purposes during that time, Phil Spencer was like Shuhei Yoshida. He was the savior for Xbox. And if he had gotten the rights to it around that time, like because I think Destiny came out around the same time, Destiny 1 came out around the same time as he took over. Just imagine like what it would have been under his leadership during that time. Like there's also the positive what if is like maybe he could have righted the ship. Maybe he could have done like so. But now it's like looking at it, it's like, all right, Phil, you got some egg on your face. You got to wipe off yourself, man. Like, I know you have your regrets, but also at the same time, it's like you need to work on your internal issues you got going on at your own house.
Yeah, Destiny 1 was 2014.
Yeah.
Trying to see Xbox One launch
2013.
2013. Yeah, November 2013. So
I think Phil took over shortly after the release because of how Matrick handled the whole lead up to that. So
God, that was such a horrible. We're not going to get into that, guys, because we're focusing on the here and now. Just like you should focus on hitting that subscribe button right now. Subscribe to the Nerd Cave News on podcast services around the globe and on YouTube as well. Help us grow this 1.5 person business here. Derek, he's the half. I'm the whole. You
keep running with that joke. It's okay. I'll let you live in delusion land.
We're going to run that joke until it's dead in the dirt, and I'm going to dig it up every week and bring it back out. But guys, hit the subscribe button, give us 5 stars on podcast services, and make sure to stay tuned here on YouTube for all the cool things. We are streaming on Tuesdays right now as well at 7:00 p.m. We're playing some different games. We're having a good time, and we're getting ready for our next episode of Eat Sleep Anime, which I'm really excited for. We're going to be giving you a date very, very soon, so you can mark it on your calendars. It's going to be a great time. And if you want to watch that, we'll talk about that more later, because now it's time for the PlayStation news. First up, and I'm going to have to do a little bit of switching around here. The vertical stream people, it's going to look weird for a second once we get into this. Let's try that again. Astrobot launch trailer gets you hyped for the PlayStation 5's lush looking platformer.
Launches tonight or tomorrow, depending on when you're picking up the game. So excited for this.
Derek is very excited. He's an Astrobot fan.
This is a Derek-esque game.
It is much of that. All right, guys, we're going to watch this. Here we go. I'm not sharing it with Derek. Oh, there we go. Everybody can see it now. Good job, everybody. You did it. Good job. That was a great trailer. All right, here we go. For realsies this time.
Yeah. Turtle.
It looks really great.
It does. Oh wow, cool. All miniature. That's cool.
Oh, is it 2-player? Oh, that's cool. Like the handle was the PlayStation. That's super cool.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, I thought it was going to give me a little bit more. But yeah, like, let's go right here because... Okay, I thought it was the PlayStation controller on the axe. That's super dope.
It is
That's
like
super dope.
so dope to be playing it tonight. So
Derek's
I'm,
not playing it tonight, y'all. Just letting y'all
oh,
know.
I am. Trust me.
Mm.
I'm off work tomorrow, so I don't have an excuse. But
Well, are you excited, Derek? Are you ready to
I
jump into that?
I am. Like I never got to play Astro Rescue Mission on the PSVR one, because it was a VR only type game, and I'd given up on VR shortly before that. And at playing Astro's Playroom, like being a free install with every PS5 was dope, and it was a very much of a love letter to the history of PlayStation. But this one
Mm-hmm.
being more focused, but still having that nostalgia and like those iconic PlayStation characters like Jack and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank, Kratos, among other characters. So it's such a great love letter. Like I'm glad that they are like so appreciative of like the PlayStation history, and that they are
Yes.
like exuding that to the fans who grew up like through all well, now 5 generations of PlayStation.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's just a fun platformer. Like we need, I know Nintendo is taking over the platformer market, you know, with Mario and all their other IPs, but it's nice to see other companies get back into the market and just make an enjoyable platformer.
Yeah, exactly. And now we're getting it. And speaking of IP, this game's got a ton of IP in it,
Yeah.
but Sony's Hiroki Todaki reckons the company is lacking original IP.
So, speaking during an interview with the Financial Times, Sony's CFO, Hiroki Totoki, has said that he doesn't feel the company has enough original IP under its belt. Quote, whether it's for games, films, or anime, we don't have that much IP that we fostered from the beginning. We're lacking the early phase of IP, and that's an issue for us. The executive went on to say that Sony has been more successful at finding new audiences for existing and popular IPs, and feels the electronics giant will be unable to use growth unless it to see growth unless it creates content from scratch to gesture to ensure higher returns. And I'd like to know what he means by that, because when you think of the IP now, like sure, Insomniac, like take out the license one with Spider-Man. You have Astrobot, you have God of War, you have Ghost of Tsushima, you have Bloodborne, you have uh, Infamous, you have Uncharted, you have Resistance, you have just an endless plethora. So it's like I wonder what he means. Now, of course, Insomniac before they acquired him was just a second party partner. Like
Mm-hmm.
maybe he's talking about like certain licensing issues with certain games like Ratchet and Clank and all that. But it's like, what does he mean? Because you have The Last of Us as well, and just other IP. Like, does he mean more iconic? Like, because I mean, when you think of PlayStation, you do think of just lately, you think of Last of Us, God of War, Spider Man, Horizon, Ghost of Tsushima. That's only five that like the big ones. But there's such a more plethora when you dig deeper into the lore of PlayStation. But I wonder if he means expand it like how it was with like the platformers like Jack and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank, Sly Cooper. Does he mean bringing those back as well and expanding their library, or just creating originals? Because I'd like to know what he means by original IP, because a lot of the IP that Sony owns is original.
Yeah, I'm wondering if he's like meaning like, oh, it's relevant today. I'm
Yeah.
not 100% sure on this, but yes, like if you look at it, most people in this position, Sony, Xbox, Nintendo, they have a number of IP. Sony has some big heavy hitters. I feel like Nintendo's is the most diverse.
Sure.
They've got a big bag of them. I feel like Xbox has, well, without Activision Blizzard, I feel like Xbox has Marcus Phoenix, Master Chief, and that's really about it on
Yeah.
the big scale. And then you add Bethesda in there, and then you've got some others. But with PlayStation, you do have Ghost, which would be an amazing anime or live action show. You've got God of War. We've already getting Last of Us as a show and also a game. Sackboy as a kids TV
True.
show, or
Yeah.
Astrobot. Like, dude, that would
Yeah.
be amazing. Ratchet and Clank, you could do the same thing. We already got a Gran Turismo movie, which didn't do that great, but we've got that. Days Gone, I brought it
Eh.
up, Derek, but Days Gone is there. But
Why'd you say
Returnal.
that name?
Yeah. Returnal could be an awesome like sci-fi show. Like
True.
you could
That's a very
really,
good point.
yeah, you really could dive deep into that world and everything. But it's like you aren't limited by just these. We do have the Uncharted movie as well, which I feel like there is this kind of like double-edged sword. Do you go back and do more Uncharted games and all of that? Probably not. But think about Helldivers. Helldivers, this huge success out of really nowhere from most people. They're not as sophisticated, demure, some would say. But Helldivers took the world by storm. Doing a show off of that would be great. Whatever. Right. You could do a lot of things with that IP. And then you've got Demon Souls, which you could do a lot of things with. Bloodborne, you could do a lot of things with as well. I feel like Medieval.
Oh, yeah.
And then you've got Death Stranding, which I know is not fully their IP.
Right.
But them and Hideo have a pretty good working relationship. But then you've got
doing a show or movie off of Death Stranding as well.
Yeah, and then you've got stuff like Legends of Dragoon. You've got stuff that is like older. Yeah, like you've got so many things that you could be doing, and I understand like you need to be making new things. You can't just be putting out another God of War. Like you're going to get into the position that Ubisoft is in, where they run things into the ground. And like when you do get a new IP, Ghost of Tsushima, you need to be ready to put all in on that. Where is the second one, for the love of God? You know what I mean?
Just confirm it. Like, just at this point, if they don't announce it and give like a release date for like the following year, like say they announce it at Game Awards and then it's a 2025 release date, people are going to riot.
Yeah, definitely. But it's like, okay, Ghost could go so many different places. You don't even have to have Jin as the main character. And new IP it's hard to come up with because we're about to talk about a new IP that PlayStation just put out.
Right.
But it's all about the reasoning, the story, and what you're asking of the player. Not just the gameplay side of it. It's like, what are you asking of the player? Are you asking them to dive into something that is live service? Are you asking them to go on a single player story, which I think Sony does really, really well? But, Marathon's going to be a game.
Yeah.
It's going to be a game.
It's going to exist.
So I would love more clarification on this comment because it's like we're lacking the early phase of IP. So it's like, are y'all lacking the gestation of new ideas,
Yeah.
I think that might be what it is. It's like,
but also you have the other side. Now, again, it's not, with like Concord, like what she'll get into here in just a moment. And then you have Dreams that they just stated and then let simmer too long and then came out and Dreams was more of a success because of the creation tools, but didn't pretty much set the world on fire. So like, you got to find that nice middle ground.
I think if you're wanting new, interesting IPs, you're going to need to get not these behemoth developers. You're going to need to bring in some indie developers onto your teams that can move quicker on their feet. That is the nice thing about an indie development team, or even a small business, is you can make changes and things very quickly compared to a huge corporation that it takes a long time. It's like a big ship compared to a speedboat. And speaking of a big ship that crashed and now is sinking, Concord is being taken offline tomorrow, and refunds will be issued to all players.
So, Firewalk Studios' new shooter Concord launched in a less than ideal state for a multiplayer game. The issue wasn't technical, it wasn't having major server problems, it just didn't have enough players. It failed to hit more than 700 concurrent players on Steam over its launch weekend, and at least on PC never went further than its peak of 697. However, PlayStation published a blog post announced that Concord will be taken offline tomorrow on September 6th, which at the time of this writing. Quote, Concord fans, we've been listening closely to your feedback since the launch of Concord for PS5 and PC and want to thank everyone who has joined the journey aboard the North Star, began the game director of Firewalk, Ryan Ellis. Quote, your support and the passionate community that has grown around the game has meant the world to us. However, while many qualities of the experience resonated with players, we also recognize that other aspects of the game in our initial launch didn't land the way we'd intended. Therefore, at this time, we have decided to take the game offline beginning tomorrow and explore options, including those that will better reach our players. Big wolf on this, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like you hate to say "you told you so," and you hate it because people actually, like games are hard. We've said this time and time again. Don't know how to create game, don't know how to do coding, don't know how to do texture designs, all that kind of stuff. So at one, we've talked about like whose fault it is. Like at some point, you got to point the finger at yourself and be like, maybe it was us, like and like just not even blame the higher ups. Like say, why did I hire this person to make this design or like this make this game choice, and why didn't we let them succeed, or why did we not push the envelope more and force them to really think critically about what they're making, this piece of art that they're making, and decide and make them force themselves to say to themselves, am what I am making, am I happy with it? Is it something that will be a hit for players? Will it make us money? Will it force us to be a studio that will be a mainstay in the ethos for PlayStation down the long run? So that being said, again, I hate to say it, we told you so. Like we looked at it, it had a good first, well, it had a decent first trailer. Like it made us laugh. Like, but after watching it, like I know I said it just looked like a poor Guardians of the Galaxy imitation, and mixed in with Overwatch once we saw the gameplay, and I didn't expect this. Like, you know what I mean? Like I expected it to be a like low simmer to poof to put the fire out, and it probably would be dead by middle of next year. Did not expect it to not even last a flipping week, not even 1,000 concurrent players. Like this is arguably Sony's biggest flop in the last decade since the PlayStation 4. Honestly, I don't know. I can't speak to anything further than that, but I know it's probably their biggest flop since Days Gone. Honestly, um, at least from a critical standpoint. But even Days Gone, like it just didn't recoup its money. It's still and like it found its second life on PC. This thing came out and didn't even hit 1,000 players on Steam. Like it's absolutely ridiculous. Now to go to the other side of it, I now worry about Firewalk. Like I'm of two minds. I was thinking about this earlier today. I'm of two minds. Either it's going to shut, like, because people are saying, oh, they're gonna lay off people. I think it's going to further than that. I think they're either going to shut down the Sony's going to shut down the studio, or they're going to do an Activision and close the studio, but then fuse them into like take them off like doing their own games and fuse them into like say a Bungie, and make them like help them with Marathon or the next thing iteration of Destiny, or whatever expansion. I know they're not doing Destiny 3 anymore, but like do what, just be a support studio, or just like because Destiny, Bungie just did a bunch of layoffs not that long ago. So maybe it's like, all right, we're
Mm-hmm.
going to recoup them and just use the Firewalk people. So I'm of the two mindsets that this is what's going to be, because like if this game had not recouped its money and it lasted say 6 months, 6 to 8 months, I could see them just being like, all right, we're just going to do layoffs, maybe have the CEO step down and be done with it. But not even lasting a flipping week, or barely two, actually, because it came out on the 23rd, barely lasting 2 weeks at launch, after launch. And this means a studio closure. Like I don't think there's any ifs, ands, or buts about it. Whether it's a closure and they just lose their jobs, or they get molded into like say a Bungie or whomever they want to fuse them with, That's the inevitable fate for Firewalk. I don't think Firewalk makes it past after this game closes.
Yeah, because like you think about like we had like Destruction All Stars.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody really wanted that game, but it's still running.
Yeah.
There was enough of that.
I mean, heck, no one asked for Foam Stars, and it's going free to play. So that's the game still has life in it.
Yeah, and I'm wondering how this got to the place that it is. Like how did this? And I know a lot of it is because of Jim Ryan and his push for live service games.
But this game was also in development for 8 years.
Yeah, this was before they even got bought by Sony.
Yeah.
Literally started development when Overwatch 1 came out.
Correct.
It's weird, dude. Like when they would literally pull the plug off of a Last of Us multiplayer game.
Yeah.
But they would let this go out. And they saw people's reactions and thoughts from the beta, and they extended the beta, trying to get people's,
They not only extended it, they started it early too.
Yeah. So it's super strange what's going on. I do think Firewalk, unfortunately, I do think that it will be some sort of layoffs, restructuring, maybe closure type deal. But my biggest thing is moving forward. We've got Haven working on Fair Game, which is the looter, kind of like the finals-esque game. And then we have Marathon being worked on by Bungie.
Yeah.
Do you think that this is going to be scrutinized and they cancel maybe Haven's game?
I mean, it depends on how far along in development, but also again, like the Last of Us Online game is different because it's Naughty Dog's name, and if Naughty Dog says this game is going to be hot garbage, Sony doesn't want their crown jewel to be tainted, even though you can argue that it already is to an extent. So, like, yes, it canceled it, and but at least they didn't come out and it flopped as hard as Concord. You know what I mean? They didn't they pulled the plug because they knew better. I think they wanted to protect the name brand of Naughty Dog, but with these other games, I don't know. It depends on how far along in development they are. Like Marathon, if it wasn't for the fact that they said they're not doing a Destiny 3 and they're just going to continue to do smaller updates for Destiny 2, I would say that they pull the plug on Marathon. Or at least delay it indefinitely and just reroute the structure of what that game is and not be a live service. Fair Games, though, is intriguing because it's correct me if I'm wrong, Haven was bought or it was a internally made? Yeah, this is a Jade Raymond studio, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, again, Jade Raymond is another person with pedigree. At the same time, you got to wonder, it's like, how far in development? Because if it's coming out, let's say, mid-2025 or fall 2025, does Sony pull, is that late enough for Sony to pull the plug on it? Or if it's going to come out, let's say this September PlayStation State of Play comes out and they announce and they bring back Fair Games and saying it's going to launch spring of 25. That's going to be too late. They're just going to have to let that game ride and see and hope for the best. Because I know there's a quickie in there saying that talking about Fair Games as actually, where was it? Oh yeah, they're very positive about Fair Games. Sony is. So I don't know. Like, it just depends. Like, I could see them letting both ride out. I could see them maybe pulling the plug. I could see doing half and half. I don't know. This is ever since Jim Ryan left, Sony is trying to navigate the path that he set them on and trying to make it right. My question is the boring one. I don't, or my answer is the boring one. I don't know what this means going forward because they're saying they're giving a press. They already came out and said something about fair games, and then again, it's like if they do cancel Marathon and them already saying nixing Destiny for all intents and purposes, what does Bungie do? Like they can't just sit there for a decade and have nothing in the pipeline ready to go. I don't know. I think Sony is now with this live service initiative and having some of these bigger studios the or studios with bigger names attached, they've put themselves into a corner, and now I think they just have to ride it out and just eat the loss and just go back to let their crown jewels like Santa Monica, Sucker Punch, Naughty Dog just do their magic again.
Yeah, it's difficult because do you want another Concord situation?
Right.
Do you want to be in the position where you put another game out and it's bad?
Yeah.
Because you could kind of see the writing on the wall going into Concord, the way PlayStation handled it. They didn't do a ton of press on it. They didn't really push it super hard.
Right.
I feel like Firewalk was doing more of the push than Sony itself.
Right.
So that tells me a lot. And we haven't heard anything from Haven since 2023 when they announced it in that really bad state of play.
The one that no one wanted, the live service state of play that no one asked for.
Yeah, exactly. And then you've got Marathon, which we got is a teaser trailer. So I kind of think of it this way. When a coach comes into a football program and, college football program, and they've recruited for a totally different play style than he runs, what do you do? Do you, do you make do and try to kind of, shimmy and get it to something that you're comfortable with using? Because I feel like that's what, the CEOs are having to do right now, because the old coach, Jim Ryan, set them up on a run first option and their pass option. They want to pass. So only time will tell. Yeah. Only time will tell. And I hate it for everyone at Firewalk. And if you're working on a live service game, make sure your game doesn't suck and people actually want to play it. I think that's the big lesson that needs to be learned by any publisher. Don't put out a game that people don't want to play,
or a game that you don't believe in, or don't be a part. Don't feel like you have to be forced to do this game that you not to say that you weren't hired to do, but also it's like, if you don't believe in this, speak up. And if they don't, and if they say, well, we're doing this anyway, try and get out of there. Find a job that is making a game that you believe in and want to do.
Yeah. Which I know that's a little bit hard with the market the way it is right now, finding something. But yeah, it's just hard when you don't believe in something. People can tell. People can tell. So
like Peter Dinklage's performance as the Ghost, phoned in.
I'm just gonna say it. I kind of liked Peter Dinklage as Ghost. It's kind of sad to see him go. Yeah. Kind of works with the robot, but that's neither here nor there. But what is right now is the present, not the future. But what is right now is now and not yesterday. But the PlayStation Quickies is now.
So first up, YouTube finally removes 1 minute unskippable ads on PS5. PS2 added to Japan's Future Technology Heritage Registry and is the first console to be included. Ballistic Moon has reportedly laid off undisclosed number of staff ahead of Until Dawn launch. Silent Hill 2 Remake includes option to turn off UI and apply a 90s filter. Some more Concord stuff. Concord dev issues thank you for outcry of support on social media, saying you are the reason we make games. Concord players grind for Platinum Trophy ahead of shutdown by throwing rivalry matches. Scalpers are trying to upsell Concord after Sony pulled it from sale. Sony is reportedly feeling, quote, very positive about live service title Fair Games, despite Concord flop. It looks like a highly anticipated enemy faction is finally coming to Helldivers 2 soon. Some Astrobot news. Astrobot director confirms plans for DLC featuring speedrun stages. The Astrobot dev apparently is thinking about a sequel already. Astrobot will carry over your Astro's Playroom progress. And lastly, Sony Santa Monica Studio has, quote, several unannounced titles in the works. Let's go.
That's interesting. When they say that, something's in the works, like it could be in so many different parts of the process. It could be in gestation. They're coming up with things and all of that. But I'm glad because Sony Santa Monica, if you're new here, probably our favorite studio. So,
just make small, like not very known games at all. Like no game of the year contenders come out of that studio.
Yeah, nothing like that.
No game of the year winners come out of that studio.
Nope. It's time for the Patreon quick hits though, because the future is now, and now is the future, but yesterday was the past. You know, Derek.
Yeah, sure. You just ride with that bit, Zach. I'm going to live in the present. Starting off.
Ho, man. I got to do the spiel over here. The Patreon quick hits are brought to you by our wonderful patrons. Go and support the Nerd Cave by getting your very own Nerd Cave membership to help us continue to make awesome shows like this one, Car Thoughts, Eat, Sleep, Anime, our Tuesday night streams. It helps us keep the lights and the mics on. So become part of the ship, part of the crew over on patreon.com/nerdcave. Now for the Patreon quick hits.
So starting off, Harry Potter Quidditch Champions Easter eggs include PS1 Hagrid meme. Following that, Quidditch Champions roadmap includes Hogwarts Legacy and Halloween events. CD Projekt Red says Cyberpunk 2077 dev team will likely double in headcount over next year. Following that, the Cyberpunk board game was funded in less than 10 minutes. Annapurna partners with Remedy to bring Alan Wake in Control to film and TV and will co-finance Control 2 as part of the deal. Control 2 team is, quote, working full steam ahead, and players will have to wait a while for any update. X-Defiant Dev reportedly has until the end of Season 3 to improve declining player numbers. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 looks set to top Baldur's Gate 3 as the game with the longest script. Visions of Mana Dev is reportedly shutting its doors as NetEase and Tencent scale back on Japanese investments. Multiverse's patch notes reveal fighters are now playable in local play game modes. Rumor, new Batman game set in the Matt Reeves universe is in production. Pauline is playable in Super Mario Party Jamboree. Indy's most iconic look locked behind Indiana Jones and the Great Circle Premium Edition at launch. Larian Dev priced Baldur's Gate 3 and Divinity Original Sin 2 below value as he had faith games would recover costs. Rocksteady Studios working on unannounced project according to senior programmer resume. Following that, though, Rocksteady suffers layoffs following Suicide Squad's poor sales. Capcom mainstay Hideaki Itsuno announces departure from the company. Amazon Games regrets the confusion over CEO's AI and voice actor comments after harsh online criticism. Tony Hawk Pro Skater social media accounts updated for 25th anniversary. Marvel Rivals dev says no character is off limits as long as they bring something good to the roster. Toadman Interactive, which is a support studio for Dead Island 2 and Helldivers 2, confirms layoffs. Voice acting legend Jennifer Hale on video game strikes says AI is coming for all of us. Nintendo suggests Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are part of the new Zelda timeline. Gearbox confirms Borderlands 4 will introduce 4 brand new Vault Hunters. Popu, the studio behind Risk of Rain 2, is closing its doors and will be joining Valve. Square Enix confirms Tokyo Game Show lineup includes Dragon Quest III HD 2D remake and Life is Strange Double Exposure. BioWare details Dragon Age The Veilguard's progression systems for your character companions and more. No Man's Sky latest update finally adds fishing to the game. Dragon Ball MOBA arrives in 2025. Assassin's Creed Shadows brings back double assassinations. Souls-like Inotria delayed indefinitely on Xbox because Microsoft decided to ignore devs. Black Myth Wukong Xbox delay due to Sony exclusivity deal and not tech issues, according to source. Making a follow-up to Hogwarts Legacy is one of the biggest priorities for Warner Brothers. Honkai Star Rail is reportedly getting a physical edition. And lastly, Undead Labs moves from State of Decay 2 to focus on State of Decay 3.
Like this Black Myth Wukong like Xbox thing
Right. It's a
is
weird development.
it is so confusing because some people are saying like different sources. I'm sure you've heard the same stuff. Some people are saying, "Oh, it's an exclusivity deal," and then Sony's like, "Yeah, there's no exclusivity." And
Right.
Game Science even said that, and then it was like, "Oh, well, it's because Xbox this," and it's like, well, I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
very confused.
I don't know what to believe. Jason Schreier, we need you on the case, my guy.
Yeah. Start sniffing, my friend. Start sniffing. And then Hogwarts Legacy, like they're wanting to make a sequel. Of course they want to make a sequel to this game.
It was the best-selling game of 2023.
Yeah, it's like, and especially after, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League did so poorly.
Oh yeah.
Because it came out last year, I don't think we get one super soon. No. I think if they're smart, they do DLC instead of, sure. Like it's been out a year. We haven't really got DLC for it.
Right.
Put out a big
expansion.
DLC, do something that's like 6 to 8 hours long.
Right.
Make it like $25 and people will eat it up.
For sure.
People will eat it up. Like
and with how
soup and ice cream.
And okay. With how long development takes, it's not going to be a short turnaround. Like I know Jedi Survivor was sort of like the outlier, but that even still took like 3-4 years essentially. So I don't expect came out last year. I don't expect it till probably the PS6 and the next Xbox come out, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I'm saying doing DLC while the main team works on the sequel.
Or even doing like a smaller experience, like a Miles Morales type thing, or Uncharted Legacy. Like just do it like you can do a separate thing, charge $40 for it, make it like an 8 to 10 hour experience, and and it can even be on other characters. It doesn't have to be the continue the story your character told. Like say you want to do side characters that were really intriguing. Let's say the Slytherin kid from Hogwarts Legacy. Like if you want to do something on his family and his journey, like you could totally do that, or just pick certain characters from that game that fans really resonated with and do a story around that.
Yeah, Voldemort. Well, that is our episode of the Nerd Cave News. We hope that you enjoyed it, and we invite you all to go over to patreon.com/nerdcave and support us there. Make sure to hit the subscribe button here on YouTube and podcast services around the globe, and come back on Tuesday where we're going to be jumping into hanging out. We're going to be playing some more Star Wars Outlaws. Maybe Derek can convince me to play some Astrobot as well. I don't know. We'll see. But we hope that you have a wonderful night, and we will see you on the next exciting episode of Dragon Ball Z. This has been Zach
and King Thalric Valkrum.
Y'all have a blessed week.